Hello, today I'll be talking about my top 10 favorite albums of 1998. This is, of course, for all genres. But yeah, these albums will be in no particular order, but we're going to go ahead and start off with something a bit heavy. Death with their album The Sound of Perseverance, and this would be their final album. So yeah, one of the OGs in the world of death metal. And yeah, this would be their final album, and I'll be honest, not one of my favorite Death albums, but still, that's not really saying a whole lot though, because I still think this album is pretty good. To me, Death has no bad albums. But yeah, pretty good album. My favorite song on here is definitely Flesh and the Power That It Holds, or In the Power It Holds. That's probably one of my favorite Death songs. Spirit Crusher is also pretty good. That's probably another one of my favorite Death songs, and easily one of my favorites on here. Definitely get your fair share of pretty killer riffs on the album, especially in songs like Scavenger of Sorrow, which opens up the album, and also same thing with Bite the Pain. I do also like their cover of Painkiller, of course originally done by Judas Priest. I mean, of course the original will always be my favorite, but I've always liked Death's take on Painkiller. Overall, fairly solid way to close off the album. And Voice of the Soul, I really dig that instrumental a lot, especially, of course, the guitar work. But yeah, pretty good musicianship all around the board when it comes to this album. Not my favorite lineup of Death. My favorite Death lineup is probably the lineup that they had on Individual Thought Patterns, but you do get a solid lineup on this album too, of course. But yeah, really good album. Again, not top shelf Death for me, but still, that's not saying much. Still a pretty good album and easily one of my favorite metal albums of 1998. But next, we'll be moving to Fear Factory with Obsolete. So yeah, this is the album where you start to hear some nu metal isms a little bit creeping into the sound, but of course they would go even further with that with the next album, Digimortal, which I also do like. I think Digimortal is actually one of my favorite Fear Factory albums, but this album probably is my second favorite Fear Factory album, Demon Manufacturer, of course, being at the top. But yeah, this album definitely pretty good. Definitely get many fan favorites off of here, like Shock and Edge Crusher, and of course the cover of Cars. But I think you get some of the band's best deep cuts on here, like High Tech Hate and especially Freedom or Fire. That's probably one of my favorite Fear Factory songs. And of course, Burton C. Bell definitely has a fairly unique voice in the world of metal. No one really sounds like him, and he definitely does sound great in this album, especially in songs like Descent and Freedom or Fire. But yeah, to me, another pretty good Fear Factory album. Definitely one of the band's best, for sure. The next we'll be moving to Garbage with their second album, Version 2.0. My second favorite album from them, the debut, self-titled, being my favorite, but this would be in close second. This album actually has the song that really got me into them, and that song is I Think I'm Paranoid. And yeah, you have other really great songs on here. I mean, really, the singles on here I think are still hold up all these years later. Songs, of course, like I Think I'm Paranoid and Special and Push It. But I think you get some pretty good deep cuts on here too, like Dumb. I also like When I Grow Up. If I remember correctly, when I saw them a little bit earlier this year, they played that one. You Look So Fine, to me, is easily one of their best album closers. Milk is still my favorite Garbage album closer, and in general, of course, one of my favorite Garbage songs, but You Look So Fine, that might be my second favorite Garbage album closer. Really great song, especially dig Shirley's vocals in that song especially. So yeah, definitely one of the band's best for sure. Pretty good album. But next we'll be moving to Godsmack with their self-titled album. This is probably my third favorite album from them. Faceless will always be at the top for me, but this would probably be my third favorite. Of course, you do have some fan favorites on here like Voodoo and Whatever and Keep Away, but you have other really great songs on here like Bad Religion and Immune, which is a song that's grown to be one of my favorites on the album. Time Bomb is another song that's always been one of my personal favorites on the album. But yeah, I know this is a band that does get its share of... I know Godsmack is one of those bands that does get their share of flack sometimes from what I've noticed. And I definitely have heard the Alice in Chains comparisons with this band, and Yeah, I can definitely hear it, but for me, it's not to the point of like ruining the music for me or anything like that, or ruining the vibe, whatever, however you want to put it. But yeah, I get the Alice in Chains comparisons, but personally, I like Godsmack, especially their first three albums. I mean, the stuff they did after that. I do like Four, and I do like Oracle and 1,000 Horsepower. I like those albums, but for me, none of those albums are quite on the same level as those first three albums, and at least in my opinion. And then you had When Legends Rise and Light Up the Sky, if I got the title right, the last album. Those two albums, I'm not too big on, if I'm being honest. I like maybe a couple or a few songs from both of those albums, and that's about it. But yeah, Faceless will always be my favorite. But their debut album, definitely really, really good stuff. But yeah. Now we're moving to an album that I played to death when I was younger, and still an album that I enjoy all these years later, and also one of the first few bands I ever got into. We were talking about Korn with Follow the Leader. Love this album. It's tough for me to pick a favorite Korn album. It would have to be either this album or Issues or their self-titled debut, of course. It's kind of a fight between those three albums for me when it comes to picking a favorite Korn album. But yeah, always loved Follow the Leader. This is an album that I've listened to from front to back so many times. Absolutely love this album. Of course, everyone knows songs like Freak on a Leash and Got the Life, but you get some really strong deep cuts on here. Songs like Dead Bodies Everywhere, Seed, and Reclaim My Place. I also like the Futures on here. I do like Ice Cube on Children of the Corn. And I mean, Fred Durst, I know Fred Durst is not going to be for everyone. And sure, there's probably some lyrics or bars or whatever in All in the Family that probably haven't aged well. But, yeah, you can maybe say that song is kind of its time. But for me, it's a song I can at least still go back to. I don't mind that song. I do like All in the Family. And then you also have, I think, one of the members from Farside on Cameltosis. I do like that song too. That's probably one of the more underrated songs off of here, in my opinion. I do also like the use of bagpipes and My Gift to You. I always like it when Korn utilizes bagpipes. You always end up getting something cool with that, at least in my opinion. And then It's On is, for me, one of their best album openers too. But yeah, you really can't go wrong with any of the songs on this album, at least in my opinion. But yeah, for me, one of the band's best for sure. But next we'll be moving to something a bit different. Mezzanine by Massive Attack. A trip-hop classic, and of course one of the biggest albums in that genre. And yeah, absolutely love this album. And for me, the band's peak. Of course, I do enjoy Blue Lines and Protection. Those two albums are really great. Protection would probably be my second favorite, but this has to be at the top for me. Even if that's kind of a basic choice, depending on who you ask. But since this is their biggest album, and I don't know, I think this is a really great album. And for me, nothing they did after, there isn't really anything that they did after this that for me comes on the same level as those first three albums. But I do like the stuff that they did after, though. But yeah, for me, this is peak Massive Attack. So many great songs like Angel and of course Rising Sun. Then you have the big song on here with Teardrop, and Dissolved Girls, another one of my favorites. I definitely dig the female vocals in that song especially. And if I remember correctly, that song was in the soundtrack for the first Matrix movie, if I remember correctly. But either way, that's one of my favorite Massive Attack songs. I also like Group 4. That's one of their more underrated songs. I really like that one too. Black Milk, they're a pretty good deep cut on the album. But yeah, Mezzanine by Massive Attack definitely has to be in my top 10 of 1998. If you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. The next two, we'll be moving to one of the big four of grunge, Pearl Jam with Yield. And for me, their last good album, if I'm being honest. When it comes to Pearl Jam after the 90s, most of it doesn't do a whole lot for me. Self-titled, Lightning Bolt, and Gigaton, those are probably the best ones after the 90s, at least for me. But that's not really saying a whole lot, though, since I think those albums are just okay to all right. slash decent for me. But for me, their last truly great or good album for me is Yield. But yeah, solid album though. Some of my favorites being Brain of J. That's a good rocker. Of course, you have Given to Fly on here, which is one of the bigger songs on here, and also one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs. You have other pretty good songs on here like Pilot, Pilot, and Do the Evolution's also pretty good too. I also like In Hiding, probably one of my favorites when it comes to the second half of the album. But yeah, for me, one of Pearl Jam's best. Next, we'll be moving to Soulfly's debut album, the self-titled, which I know for some people is their favorite from the band. This is my second favorite. Primitive has to be at the top for me. Love Primitive, but I do love this album too. Definitely a strong way to, definitely a strong start to the Soulfly discography. I mean, so many great songs, so many songs on here that are definitely some of the band's best, I'd say. Songs like Eye for an Eye and Bleed. I really like Fire. That's probably another one of my favorite Soulfly songs. I also like No. Definitely one of my favorites when it comes to the second half of the album. Boomba is also pretty good. That's another standout for me. No Hope equals No Fear. That song definitely goes hard. That's definitely another standout for me. I do like the features on here, such as, of course, Fred Durst and, of course, Chino from Deftones is on here. On First Commandment, if I'm thinking of the right song, I do like that one. But yeah, this was also produced by Ross Robinson, of course, a legendary producer when it comes to the world of nu metal, especially around this time, late 90s. But yeah, definitely a great album for sure. And Soulfly was actually my introduction to Max Cavalera. I mean, I know a lot of people, their introduction to Max was Sepultura, but for me, I discovered Soulfly first and then Sepultura. But yeah, great album. Moving into Symphony X, we got Twilight and Olympus. To me, kind of an underrated album. When it comes to Symphony X, people usually talk about Divine Wings or V or The Odyssey. But I think this album, at least when it comes to ranking their albums, it would be in the upper half for me. For me, it just doesn't get as much attention as some of their other albums. But personally, I think it's actually pretty good. I mean, Smoke and Mirrors, which opens up the album, that's probably one of my favorite Symphony X albums. I mean, with Symphony X, you pretty much get a mix between progressive metal and power metal. I'm not a big power metal fan. This is really the only band I'm into that has some sort of power metal in their sound. But when it comes to this band, I guess it works for me. But yeah, Symphony X is great. V is probably my favorite album from them, but this to me is one of their best. And yeah, Smoke and Mirrors is great. Church of the Machine, another standout for me. I also like In the Dragon's Den, which is one of the shorter tracks. And then Lady of the Snow for me actually might be one of my favorite album closers from the band. A song that's not talked about as much as some other songs on here, but personally, I dig that song. But yeah, Twilight and Olympus, good album. If you haven't heard it, definitely check it out, especially if you're a fan of prog metal. And now for the final album here, another album that I listened to a lot when I was younger, and also definitely one of my favorite bands, especially for like over a decade now, has been one of my favorite bands. And that is System of a Down with their self-titled debut. An album that I'll always have a soft spot for. I mean, of course, Toxicity will always be at the top. Toxicity is one of my favorite albums of all time, but this album might probably be my second favorite. Yeah, you really can't go wrong with any of the songs on here. This is an album you can listen to from front to back with no issue. For me, I think they would do even better with Toxicity, but this would definitely be my second, again, probably in close second for sure. I mean, this album was just raw, heavy, and also just a blast to listen to also. But yeah, so many great songs. Sugar, Spiders. Even the lesser known songs are all pretty good too, like Soil, which is probably one of their heaviest songs. I also like Mine, which is one of their longer songs. I really like that one. Definitely underrated. Sweet Pea, one of my favorite album openers from the band. But yeah, really great album. But that is my top 10 favorite albums of 1998. Let me know your thoughts on my list in the comment section below, and let me know your list too, and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.